Beachum with Gold Derby here. We've got Taron Egerton from Rocketman, the star that played Elton John, a very daunting task. Taron, tell us about the first time you met Elton John.
The first time I met him would have been, I believe, in 2016. He cameoed in the sequel to Kingsman, which was the first film I was in. And we were filming a scene where I get married, which happens at the end of the movie, and he's playing the organ in the church. And I met him. He asked me to go and he sent someone down to go and get me, and I went up to the sort of area behind the organ in the church, and we had a really lovely chat. And he was very funny and naughty and irreverent and cheeky, as he always is. And since then, which was 3.5 years ago, our sort of relationship has gone from strength to strength, really, and we've become really quite close, which is a lovely byproduct of the experience of playing him.
How long after shooting that scene did you meet with him or meet with Dexter about taking on this project?
The idea of me playing him was first suggested not long after that, and I think the idea really came from Matthew Vaughn, because Elton and I don't really look particularly alike, but Matthew's always been a great champion of me, and sort of I'm very grateful to him, because I think he thinks quite outside of the box in terms of me as an actor. The idea of me playing Eddie the Eagle was him as well, which, when you think of me as Eggsy in Kingsman, it's not necessarily an obvious next role, and he's been great at providing me with those opportunities, and he suggested it to Elton and David, and I think it kind of, the idea steadily grew from there. Matthew also knew I could sing and enjoyed singing, and knew that I wanted to try and, I think he loves musicals as well, and we wanted to try and find a project together, and then it was very shortly after the idea of me playing him that Dexter was always the obvious person. It just felt perfect. His eye for colour and vibrancy, and his larger than life personality, and he'd also directed a musical before called Sunshine on Leith, which was used the music of the Proclaimers, who I don't know if they're very well known here, but they're a sort of Scottish band who are quite celebrated in the UK, and that's sort of where it all started, really.
And Dexter had worked on Bohemian Rhapsody from last year.
Yes.
What's so interesting to me is you could go from Rami Malek winning a ton of awards last year and an Oscar, and then you coming in this year as Elton John. We could have Freddie Mercury and Elton John back to back at all these award shows.
Well, I can't speak to that. Of course, the idea is so exciting and lovely, but far from a guarantee. Lightning doesn't always strike twice, as they say. But I know that I'm very, very proud of the performance and very, very proud of the film, and it's lovely that people responded to it in such a way that means that we are part of those conversations.
We're going to have your production designer on a crafts panel in a couple of weeks.
Great.
And your costume designer on a crafts panel in a couple of weeks.
They are both fine gentlemen.
So between them and your makeup artist and your hair artist and all the people that worked with you, what was how did they help you make this work?
I mean, you can't do it without them. It's particularly, I think, when you're playing somebody like Elton John, who has such a specific aesthetic, and the world we're creating around him from a production design perspective is so, so kind of vibrant and colourful, and it's such an exciting time in the past, few decades. That sweet spot of late 60s, 70s, 80s music in London and LA. And then, of course, the sort of the transformation of developing not just one aesthetic for him, but a whole row of different aged Eltons. It's their work. Marcus, I believe, is coming.
Marcus Rowland and Julian Day.
And Lizzie, who did it. Yeah. They're all amazing. I think, from my perspective, I particularly feel indebted to Julian. I think his work on the film, from a costume perspective, was diligent and imaginative and creative, and I really felt a collaboration with him, and I found his design really inspiring. And you know, because they're not just recreations of Elton's looks. They are true reimaginings. They're inspired by, but they are reimagined, and I think they're really authentically creative. I love the signature one being this crazy orange neoprene thing that I wear that is kind of a stage outfit that I basically march into the rehabilitation clinic in at the start of the movie, and it really sets the tone for the sort of outlandish, weird, wonderful movie that it sets out to be. So yeah, I think Julian's work is really exemplary.
Between all the work they did and then you getting ready, what was a moment either behind the scenes as you prepared or even went on stage when you felt like, wow, this looks good, this is right?
I think there's a few. I mean, there's a few incremental moments that really felt like exciting, and I think when you're really looking forward to going to work and you feel really creatively charged, I think that's a really good sign. And one of the first things we shot was my Crocodile Rock performance, which is his sort of inaugural American concert at the Troubadour in this very town, and it felt, I really enjoyed it. It's a really glorious moment for the character in the film. It's before things go a little bit awry and take a darker turn, and it's a real arrival for him, and I enjoyed bringing that moment to life. And I think I felt that day going home. I thought, you sleep when you feel creatively fulfilled. You sleep better, and I slept well that night. I felt really good after shooting that. So that would be a moment that sticks out, I think.
A couple of other people I wanted to ask you about the relationship with you and Jamie Bell playing Bernie Taupin.
Yeah.
Tell us about working with him.
I was attached to the project before Jamie, and there was so many people that were discussed and talked about for that role, because it is, it's the second lead of the film, really. It's very much their story, and their relationship is central. And the day when Dexter came to me, he's had a wry smile on his face, because he knew he'd found the perfect person, and Jamie, I honestly, there is no one else who could have done it, I don't think. And he and I we're quite different, but we're of a similar age, and I feel like, he's a ferociously talented actor, but I really felt like we complemented each other, and those two characters are two sides of a creative coin, so they need to have different energies but complement one another. And I just remember the first time he and I read a scene together, it just felt right. It just really felt right. And in fact, the scene where our characters first meet is one of the scenes that I'm most proud of in the film. And I watch it and don't hate watching it, which is, I think, a nice feeling, because you're very critical of yourself normally, and I watch that and I just feel really proud of it, and it's funny and it does its job, and I loved working with Jamie, and I think he's brilliant in the film.
Another one's Richard Madden I wanted to ask you about, because we had interviewed him around this time last year for Bodyguard.
Yes.
And then, of course, we see the movie around late April or early May.
Yes.
And I love the fact that we don't ever really know anything going into a movie. We haven't been inundated with the commercials. So I didn't know he was in it.
Oh, yeah.
I had to watch the credits at the end and go, oh, that's Richard Madden. And we just interviewed him a few months earlier. He just totally disappears.
Yeah, it's a very different role for him. He's a proper actor, and as you say, he's different from one role to the next. He's just so heart-stoppingly good looking that you forget that he's perfectly capable of character acting as well as being a dashing leading man, and he's brilliant in the film. And he and I really hit it off. I've not seen him for a minute because he's off in spandex somewhere becoming a Marvel superhero, but we really are proper friends, and he's become someone who's in my life regularly, and he's I loved meeting and working with Richard, and his imminent world domination is well deserved.
What of all the production numbers in the movie, which one scared you the most going in?
I think there always felt like there was a real weight of responsibility with your song. It's such an iconic piece of music, and it's one that lots of people hold really dear to their hearts, I think. And I always felt that it's also just a real important moment in the film for fortifying and establishing the strength of the relationship between these two characters. And we treat it as a love song that they write for each other, really, in the movie. And I suppose I felt excited but intimidated at the prospect of performing that, because also, you think for posterity, it could be for in a couple of generations' time, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that the movie's their introduction to Elton's work, and so, that's that could be scary, but that was a challenge for that reason, and then I think some of the rockier stuff felt like that was a sound that came more as I sang more, because Elton especially was very keen that it not sound Broadway. I think he wanted it to sound like rock singing.
We talked about awards earlier. You've been here in Hollywood for a few days now, and you got to do the Governor's Awards last night.
Yeah.
Was there anybody in particular that you got to meet that it was a wow moment?
I mean, that happens a lot in my life. I actually last night I didn't kind of. It's an intimidating room. I'm not one I wouldn't march up to someone really anyway. But there were lots of people who I was very near, who I was staggered to see in the flesh. Quentin Tarantino and Harvey Keitel and Gina Davis, and there's lots of people who I've grown up watching and being aware of. In terms of people that I've met that I've been staggered by recently, I mean, I had the extraordinary honour and privilege of meeting Joni Mitchell last week, and she's, I think of all the people in the world that I would have wanted to meet, it's her and it would have been David Bowie, so to have met one of the two feels like a real pinch me moment.
And you'll see a lot more this weekend because you got the Hollywood Film Awards.
Yes.
And you're getting the Breakthrough Actor Award.
I am, yes, I am. I'm very, very proud to be receiving the award, and it's a lovely, lovely thing when I've never really been in this position before. Where to receive recognition for a role like that, it's a strange feeling because it feels like something that happens to other people, but it's absolutely lovely, and I'm honoured and flattered, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Your first big award show. I like to ask people that question.
Oh,
Some can't even remember that it's been so long.
Yeah, no,
but you were up at BAFTA for the Rising Star.
Yes.
What, three years ago?
Yes, that's right. So I was nominated for the BAFTA Rising Star in 2016, and I took my mum, and it was lovely. It was a really lovely event. Those things they feel so kind of glamorous and and exciting to be at, and it's lovely going with. I have a girlfriend now, so mum doesn't always get invited. But
have to alternate now.
Yeah, well, that's the plan, I think. Yeah, I think, it's really, really exciting, and it makes it all the more special when you can share it with family or someone close to you.
One last question. You've, of course, shot the movie, took several months, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But then you've been out, you performed with Elton John on stage a few times. I saw some of those YouTube videos. Was that more daunting than doing the movie itself, going in front of all those people and performing with him?
I think it probably was, because I'm not a singer. I sing, but I'm not a singer. I'm an actor who can hold a tune, hopefully. So, but I have to say, one of the things that I have realised, people always ask, is it intimidating singing with him? And actually, you actually feel, but I have felt less intimidated singing with him than without him. There's a great, he's so assured and relaxed and kind of, you know, at ease in that position, and something of that is contagious, and I always feel very well looked after by him, and I'm very safe when I'm singing with him.
Well, thanks very much. We've certainly enjoyed the movie, and I hope we see you on a bunch of red carpets over the next few months.
Thank you so much. Thank you.